My talk is The World is an Oyster. And, I first got this title, I was like, all right, do I want to talk about oysters? Do I want to talk about what? What do I really want to talk about? And as my talk goes forward, and as I started thinking about this, I really had to think about what is that whole metaphysical meaning around the oyster. And what it came down to, for me anyway, is that it was the conscious awareness of a mystery, the mystery of life. How does all of this stuff take place? And I'll give you the example of the oyster, but I'm also going to apply it to us. And I think that this mystery, this idea of how many people are comfortable with the mystery? Oh, quite a few of you. Very good. Okay, I won't make you raise your hand if you're not. The reason why I asked this question is I think it's something that you learn. I don't think you're necessary. Now, some of you may be okay. I grew up and I was okay with it. But I think it's something we really learn to trust. Because the mystery of life, that little part in between where we don't know, is not harmful. I think sometimes we think it's something bad's going to happen to us. I can remember my niece, I'd have these long conversations with her, and she'd say, I'm waiting for the next shoe to drop. And I have to say, it's not going to drop. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. It's really an important part of who we are and what we do. The thing is, we have to, during that space, I have many names for it today, but in that gap, we have to be ready to receive. What is it we need to receive? And are we willing to do that? There's a book that I can't remember if somebody gave this to me or if it was just part of my library. But this Amanda Owen says this. Amanda says, the environment and the people in it inform you of your progress. If you're stymied by a lack of results from what you have initiated, then observe, listen, and allow from a receptive state to help you see the course you need to take to obtain the best results. It's really powerful in the sense that I think that how many people want things to happen tomorrow or right away? We're not very patient there. And we have to learn that there's a reason for all of that to take place, that little gap or mystery or whatever word you want to use. Ernest Holmes says this, and I have a little bit of reading today because I really want you to understand this middle part. The middle part is we have something happen, we don't know what to do, and then there's a pearl at the end. In other words, it gets resolved. So Ernest Holmes says this. I was noticing how many things I have noted from him. It's called The Road to Freedom is Not Mysterious. Experience has taught us that the subjective tendencies of this intelligent law, we're going to call it the law of the universe. There's quite a few of you that are new here, so I'm just going to kind of use generic words to kind of make sense. This is the law of creative force that may consciously be directed and definitely used. So that's that part. This is the greatest discovery of all time. There is no mystery here, but a profound fact and a demonstrable one. The road to freedom lies not through mystery or occult performances, but through the intelligent use of natural forces and laws. The law of the mind is a natural law in the spiritual world. So the use of our mind is a spiritual law. Now, and I wrote this down because I think that sometimes reading our beloved founder is a little complicated. And so I wrote this down for us to kind of say, what does he really mean by all that? Bottom line is, we are spirit. We are man, woman, divine. We're made of that stuff, okay? And we are law. In other words, what that is, mechanical order of the universe. We respond to it. So when I take this, well, I don't want to take anything right now, but let's say I take this and I drop it, it falls. That's a law. You get it? It's gravity. It has to work. All right? And I can't control it going down. There's a certain speed. So, as a result of that, the law of our life, how we live our life, reacts to our spiritual and mental and material concepts, and it builds according to our belief and our faith. So, let me give you an example. See that little box right there? It's called a platform. I made that yesterday. Yay, good. Thank you very much. The reason I'm using this as an example, because I think that we have this thing going on in life that seems so mysterious, and it's like, no, let me explain to you how this works. So, yesterday I had approximately 10 hours. Now, why do I say that? Because normally on Saturdays, I write my talks. And sometimes it takes me a long time because I'm conceptually trying to figure out what it is I want to say in a way that makes meaning to you. And I want to say something that's not something you've always heard. I want you to hear something that's new. The more you hear, the more you understand how the universe works. I had 10 hours, and I remembered as I woke up, oh, I've got to repair, and I have to make this little guy, this little platform. So, okay, I have to walk the dog. Got to walk the dog. So that was 40 minutes. Then I've got XYZ, XYZ, XYZ. And I thought, well, okay, maybe if I'm done by 11, I'll be fine. Because I had kind of read what this is going to be, and I was going to be okay. And, but I've still felt a little crunch. Now, I had to cut the wood. I had to then screw it together. And then I had to make sure that it was balanced. And then I had to put on a cover so it would look pretty in here, right? All right, so that's my plan. I'm giving myself plenty of time. But then, as I'm doing all this, of course you make mistakes. Anybody make a mistake when they're building anything? So I made a few mistakes, and I thought, oh, it'll be okay. You know, it's crooked here, crooked there. But you know what? The crooked sides start to make it perfect. And then I get it all made, but I don't have enough material. I don't have enough material to cover it. So I go, let me see what time it is. How much time do I have? Oh, gosh, I did that fast. That worked out really fast. And I thought, well, okay, yeah, it'll take me 10 minutes, 15 at the most to go to Home Depot and get back. Now, some of us that go to Home Depot like to go and browse. Or it's really busy because it's Saturday. And there's just lots of contractors, you know. I said, no, I'm going to go in, get my stuff, and I'm going to go out. I did. I walked in. I walked to the place where it was. I didn't like the one I saw the first, so I took the one in the second one, which was a big, you thought I was bringing carpet home, and put it in my car, and I was back in about 15 minutes. Now, I could have had an attitude of, oh, traffic's not going to work. Home Depot's going to be busy. I'm not going to be able to get this done in time. Am I going to have enough time to write my talk? Well, the truth is, it took me less than an hour to build that thing, even going to Home Depot. And not because I'm good, even though I want to say I am, but I'm not. It was good enough. It's good enough. And if you stand on it, it's pretty stable. So I feel really good about that. But I use that example because here I am in my day, and I think I started my talk around 11, and I actually got done around 2:30. And I did the newsletter in between. So it's like, how did I do all of that? That's that mystery part. How did she get all that accomplished? Because it could take me up till 5 o'clock, and then I had a dinner date that I had to go out at 6. So the point is, there's that part in the middle, the question, the part, and the completion. And that part in the middle is that mystery. And what it was is that I had an attitude of I can get it done. Now, I could have had on my left shoulder, no, it's not possible, I don't have enough time. Or I could say, you know what, I don't know how I'm going to get it done, but I know I can get it done. Are you following me here? Because this is really important as we move into this entire thing. I have another one, but I'll tell you that one later. Science of Mind says this about this topic. Can you guys see this okay? Yes. All right. It's kind of long, but it says, we must be the change we wish to see in the world. When we are presented with a situation in our lives or the world that is calling our attention, we get to work on transforming it. And then with your fire, your passion, reveal it. We begin with our inner work and then take the actions needed. We treat, for those that know what that is, it's a conscious affirmative prayer. So we pray, basically, and we move our feet. We do our part. So yesterday, I knew what I had to do. In my mind, I think I'm praying 24/7 when I'm putting into the universe, here's where I want to go. And then I moved my feet. I did my part. I didn't just say, okay, God, fix it for me. I had to do my part. I'm the human having that spiritual experience. So that's important for us to get. So, all right, we'll get to the oyster now. How many people have seen a real oyster? Not this pearl, but the oyster. It's kind of gnarly, isn't it? It's not very pretty. And that was one of the first things that caught my eye when I was doing a little bit of research on this. And the funny thing is, I was thinking, okay, how do I, and most of you understand how it all works, but we're going to get a little lesson today anyway. But how can I simplify this idea of the pearl being in the oyster? So I found a picture that was probably the simplest thing that was on the internet. And here's what it says. This is very important here. Oysters make pearls so they can feel better. Interesting, huh? When a grain of sand or debris gets stuck in their bodies, they ease the pain and irritation by coating it with multiple layers of, can you pronounce that? Nacre, thank you. The mineral that lines the inside of their shell. And a pearl begins to form. Basically, pearls are like blisters, only much prettier. Isn't that cute? So if we look into this a little deeper, basically what happens is that a little piece of sand, and we know how big a sand is, right? Like you can barely, you put it in your hand and you could, if you got down to one, you couldn't see it. But it just takes that little tiny piece of irritant to get in there, and then it becomes the nucleus of the pearl that's going to be formed, which is pretty amazing. But if you'll notice, they said that it feels, the oyster wants to feel better. That's like us. We want to feel better. But does anybody here not have any discomfort in their life? See, nobody raised their hand. We all do. And it could be daily, it could be once in a while, it could be whatever. But it's important to recognize that we are always working to make ourselves feel better. All right, so this thing gets stuck in our body, and I have an example here in a minute of human example. And then we coat it, so we have to have something to do with ourselves to make ourselves better. So anyway, there's the irritant and the discomfort feeling. But what's kind of unique about the oyster is intuitively, it knows what's going on and it works to make itself better. I just think that's fascinating. I think it's fascinating. But we can learn a lot because we're not much different than an oyster. Not much different than an oyster. I know for myself, when I feel discomfort, something happens to me. Now, maybe it doesn't happen to you, but for me, when I really feel discomfort, I kind of shut down a little bit. I don't know what to do. I don't necessarily know what to say. I don't know how to get to the pearl. But I have learned, and I feel like this is something I've been talking about all week long. Isn't that funny? I give a talk on it. I've been talking about it all week long. But I have been learning through my own discoveries that the purpose of my life is to be able to create peace. Not just peace in the world, but peace in situations. How do I get there? How do I move in that direction so that I can be more calm? So I'm going to give you a story. This is a true story, and most of you, some of you don't know, but I also have another job, and I work in what I call the promotional industry. And I deal with vendors all the time. And so this last week, I had something happen that I don't think I've ever seen before. And I actually had a vendor, we placed the order, it's all good. And I get this email back. It says, and we're talking no more than the day after, right? We are delaying your order because of lack of payment. What? You're stopping my order, and I don't make the payments. My company does. And I thought, and that was my irritation. You feel that? It's like, what do you mean you're stopping my order because I haven't paid you yet? And so I had to sit with that a little bit. And then I had to sit with it because something wasn't right. And I could have reacted, right? I could have called them and said, what do you mean you're holding my order? And they would have said, well, we're going to put it back even farther if I got mad at them. So instead, I just sat with it. And there's something not right here. I can't figure it out. That's that mystery part. Okay? So I do this a lot now. I just kind of wait until I can figure it out. Anyway, by the end of the evening, I hadn't seen anything. I said, well, let me just write an email and just kind of see if I can schmooze this over, right? So I write an email and I just say, please don't hold the order up. I have procedures, and we have an accounting department that will send you the money. It's not a big deal. Please proceed. That's what I was trying to do. And so by the next morning, I did not get a reply. And I'm like, and this particular order has a deadline. So when those things happen, I try to move things along. Anyway, I thought, okay, I'll just make a phone call. Now, I had prayed on this. I had thought on this. I thought about my words. I had no idea what was going to happen. I just knew that I wanted to be calm. That was the only thing I wanted to do. So I call, and guess who I get? The person who wrote the email. And I recognized that afterwards, after we started talking. So I just started saying, I really understand your situation and how important it is for you to get paid. You will get paid. And I just want to tell you that. Anyway, so we just started to talk. And what happened during that it turned out to be about 10 minutes of conversation, is that I found out that during the pandemic, somebody had ripped them off. Not one person, not two people, but 3 or 4 people. And so they were very skeptical about giving credit to anybody if it wasn't in their method. And I said, oh, I get it. I've been in business for myself. I understand what that means. And I'm so sorry that happened to you. By the end of the conversation, it was, let me see if I can push your order forward in front of 3 other orders we have pending so that we can meet your deadline. Now, in between all of this, I'm communicating with my own accounting department because I wanted them to see that their delay caused me some irritation. And the customer or the vendor. The point I'm trying to make is because I took the time to be in the I call it the mystery, and allow things to kind of unfold without me pounding, give me what I want, I got more than what I wanted. And not only did they complete it, but it'll be there tomorrow. It would be, but it's a holiday. They met my needs. And so part of what's happening here is we have to realize when there's discomfort, is that maybe we have to comfort ourselves a little bit and allow that mystery to unfold a little bit in our mind and in our body and in our affairs so that when we respond, it's a nicer way, maybe. And it's not easy. Is it easy? No, it's not easy. but it's something we have to do. And I'm up here, obviously I was meant to tell you this because y'all need to hear it, I guess. I have another story. Maybe I'll tell that one later. But the thing is that this discomfort, what that really means to me, or as I wrote this talk, I went, discomfort really means change. How many people like change? Oh, I got a few of it. Good. All right, Olivia. But that's a lesson we need to know. When we become discomforted, we have to know there's some kind of change going to take place. It's not difficult. It just is. It just is. Now, the other part of this, and this is like the second point of this, is that and going back to the oyster, when the oyster is to be revealed, did you know that it's very difficult to open up the shell? So many times what they do is they have to actually put it in warm water so it will open up. That's the same thing that I had to do during my period of wanting to figure out, how do I solve this small little problem. But then what my story is about is our lives. We have this happen all the time. Well, we have to open up. We have to shift. We have to make way for something new to happen instead of just pounding and pounding and trying to crack it open. The cracking, it doesn't really work. I'll give you another little quick example. This happens to be at home. How many people are still working from home? I am. Okay, so you might understand that when you're at home and there's more people at home, they tend to, I like to say, creep in. Or just come and say, hi. In my line of work, I have to really concentrate. I have to focus. Because if I don't focus, I make a mistake, it just affects everything down the line. So in my household, I have two individuals, and one likes to creep in. So I always know when the door comes out slowly, somebody's coming in. Or the other one just comes over and goes, hey, guess what? And so this week I didn't do very well. I didn't do very well when that happened. And so I kind of was a little grumpy when I responded. So, and I got reminded of that. You know what that's like, right? And I tell you this story because I couldn't solve it, and I went into that freeze zone where I could not figure it out. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to respond. And I think what I ended up doing is putting my head down and said I did bad. That was my way of getting out of it at the moment. But yesterday when I walked my dog, it still bothered me. It was that discomfort that was inside of me. And I went, so I took the 45 minutes as a way to try to work through the mystery of how do I really work this? How do I really solve this? And I thought, well, what do I need to do? What do I need to do when that happens? Because it happens more often than I'd like. And so I came up with a method for me. And that's the part I want you to get, is this time frame that we have is about coming up, what is it that it takes for me to get to that pearl, to get to that solution, not for them, but for me, so I don't feel that discomfort. And so what I came up with was 3 words: pause, breathe, respond. Pause, breathe, respond. Now that's me. The thing is, I can come up with my words, but am I going to remember it? Well, maybe in the moment. So now I have a big piece of paper that says pause, breathe, respond right on my desk. Because I know I have to practice this. So when I talk about the mystery, we have to practice what it is, the pearl that we get out of that mystery. We can't just arbitrarily say, oh yeah, I got it now. Because I don't know about you, but I forget. I'm very busy. And I'm moved in many different directions. So that's something that I'm working on. So And if I should have had you write on your paper, your little program, because there's a place where you can take notes, is that what is your thing? What is your irritant that you want to move through? And how do you do that? Another thing that I think is really important, and we've all heard the words, be the change in the world. But the truth is, I think everyone here wants to be, capital B-E, the change in the world. Right? You want to make a change. You want to make a difference so that your legacy of whoever you are really does shift situations. But to do that, we really have to have a desire or a project or something that moves us in that direction. And as I was practicing this morning, it popped in my head, and I don't know if I ever made a difference for anybody, but when I was in my 20s, a long time ago, I know you guys are laughing. I worked for a locksmith company, and one day I was in marketing, and one day they walked in to me with a catalog. Now imagine this is 8.5 by 11. That was about this thick. And they said, "We want you to make a new catalog." I'm like, oh my God. And it was a very simple locksmith catalog. Did not have a lot of information. It was not very useful. It just had a lot of part pictures in it. Okay? Now, I'm not a locksmith. I was not an expert. Still not an expert. However, now that I look at this, it became the big mystery again. How do I do this? And so I wrote up a graph. You do all those things to try and organize it in your mind. It took me almost 6 months to start because I was so petrified that if I made a mistake, that everybody would be mad and I'd lose my job. Anyway, how I started was with the first page. Just the first page. Now back then, and I tried to look it up, Xerox had a software program. And they called it a Xerox Graphic Interface Software. And they had a catchy name for it back then. I couldn't find the name. But I was so overwhelmed. I was so thankful. And I'd only been introduced to computers. Somebody had to actually take my finger and put it on the keyboard so I would know I wouldn't break it. It was that way back then. Some of you don't remember that. But it was scary back then when you started on a computer. Anyway, the short of the story is that I had a friend who was a graphic artist, and this is where you actually made the pages on a sheet of paper. You made the sheet, and you put it there and said, page 1's done. Then you started on page 2. Anyway, this project ended up being 500 pages. It was huge. And what was unique about it, and it was a unique concept which they now do a lot of, and that is that we made one catalog for ourselves that we would give to our customers. But then we took that same catalog, changed the cover, and put our customer's name on it, and he gave it to his customer. And that then accelerated his business. It grew their business. So it wasn't just about making a catalog. It was about giving away the knowledge that we had. And that's the thing that's most important. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But the thing that I want to say here is that it took me a long time to organize, and then the progress took place. But I had to start with number 1, page 1. And not everything changes immediately. And I had to align myself and the universe and everything else before any of this could have happened. Ernest Holmes says this: "We do not change all of the patterns of our thoughts in a moment. Rather, it takes place little by little, until gradually the old thought pattern becomes transformed into new ones by some inner alchemy of the mind." Now, back then, I didn't know anything about this. Today, since I do know this, it's a lot easier. I can move forward. But if you've not ever done this before, it's important to realize especially if you become paralyzed. I had a business partner that became paralyzed every time, something drastic happened. It's important to just realize that it's step by step by step. And if you're on a spiritual path and you're moving through a spiritual path, it's going to be a step by step process. And it's something you don't stop. Once you decide this is the direction I want to go, you're going to do this for the rest of your life. And you may say, I need a break and I'll go away for a couple years. But I guarantee you will come back, because spirituality never stops. It's until the day that you decide to go somewhere else, in the third dimension or fourth dimension or whatever dimension that is. But it's forever. Forever. So I have some steps. Lots of people like to take notes. You can take notes. So if this happens to you, first of all, if you have something happen to you, it's start to look at what are my thoughts around this? What are my thoughts around this discomfort? So think about the thought. Then what are the actions I want to take? I'm giving you the mystery. How do you get out of the mystery? Then what kind of actions do I want? Do I want to be peaceful about this? Do I want to be angry about this? Do I want to get my ducks in a row? Do I need to research something? What are my actions? The third step is to practice that. Maybe before you get on the phone. Like I sort of practiced when I wrote my email. Tried to be friendly. But say what I needed. And then, and this to me is something I talk about all the time, is to observe once you've got the pearl, once you've figured it out. See what you did right. See what happened. And then consciously give that pearl away. Give that idea, that thought, and it may not be at that moment. It may be a child, like Olivia, where she's going to touch the stove and you go, no, honey, let's not do that. So be ready to give it away, or know that that's your purpose, is to better everybody, better society, better your work, better your friend, to give it away. And the reason why is this. Leon Brown says this: never underestimate the valuable and important difference you make in every life you touch. For the impact you make today has a powerful rippling effect on every tomorrow. Everything you do has an effect. We are the way showers. Do you realize that? If you're in this room, you're here on purpose to learn something so that you can make something else better. Very important. It's a tough life. Anybody think it's easy out there? It's not. There's so much going on. I've never seen so much going on in my entire life. All at once, and I know about it. Right? I can only do so much. Right now, it's take care of me and my family. That's all I can do. And try and be kind and come to church, and hopefully whatever I say helps. That's all I can do. And pray and know that there's something else greater happening in all these events around the world. So, I'm almost done. Is this making any sense at all?
Yes.
Good, okay. So here's the thing. Don't ignore something that's discomfort. If you have a discomfort, don't ignore it. It reminds me of a book I read by Stephen Levine, and he really worked with cancer patients. And right at the very first paragraph, he says, when somebody comes to me with pain, I tell them, let's go into the pain. Go into the pain. Go into the discomfort. Don't be afraid of it. If you have a hard time, just step back and, I love the word observe. Because when we're observing, we're having to pay attention to it. It doesn't mean we have to do anything. We can just observe. Really important. The second thing is, don't make excuses. Like when I got in trouble for being grumpy, I didn't do good, Don't make an excuse. Excuses, when we make an excuse, what are we doing really? We're saying no. And when we do that, we cut ourselves off from the possibilities. So we don't want to say no. If you don't have an answer, just say, I don't know. I don't have it right now. I do that a lot. I don't have the answer. And I'm okay with that because I know the answer will be revealed to me as I open up to the more possibilities. And then start with what you have. It's like my little 500-page catalog. Start on page 1. What do I know? What do I need to know? What do I want? What are my needs? And then step forward into that. A little at a time, maybe. Maybe you can't chew it all off. Just do a little bit. People come to me often and will say, I don't know how to do this. And I'll say, there are 365 days in a year. If you did one thing, just one thing, every day, by the end of the year, you probably have accomplished it, or sooner. So just move one little dot into that next stage. And then realize, and this is the part that Ernest Holmes talked about in the beginning, realize that you are in the process of transforming whatever it might be, a problem, a heart, fixing a car, making a platform. But you are creating something that's going to be revealed and then used in the world. And that's the pearl. That's the gift. And that's what you want to get to. Are you willing to do that? You willing to live a little bit in the mystery and not think it's going to hurt you? Oh, come on. I got to hear you guys.
Yes.
Okay, good.